Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into a topic that really touches everyone, doesn't it? Workplace ethics. It may sound a bit dry, maybe, but honestly, it's not about just memorizing rules. It's more about understanding those tricky moments, when your own integrity bumps up against what your job asks of you, how all that interaction shapes your career, the places you work. We've pulled together a really interesting stack of sources for this deep dive. Got some sharp academic pieces, some very practical guides, and some pretty compelling real-world case studies, too. Each gives a slightly different view on these ethical challenges. So our mission today, basically to pull out the really important stuff, give you a kind of shortcut to being properly informed, and maybe uncover some surprising facts about how ethics actually plays out day to day. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what's really illuminating, I think, from these sources is that workplace ethics isn't just knowing right from wrong. It's much more tangled than that. You've got individual choices, sure, but also the whole culture of the organization weighing in, and even bigger societal expectations kind of shaping how we act at work. So this deep dive, hopefully, will help you grasp not just what workplace ethics is, but really why it matters so much. For you, personally, and for the health of the whole company, it shows how your daily actions connect to that bigger picture.
It definitely reframes it. It's not static rules, it's dynamic
Yeah.
and interplay.
Mm.
And right at the heart of that, our sources kept bringing up mutual respect between employees and supervisors.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds obvious, maybe, but it seems like that bedrock, well, it can get chipped away pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a one-way street, is it? It's got to be reciprocal. Sure, the company needs to thrive. Its interests are important. But you can't just diminish an employee's basic rights or their value as a person.
Exactly. It's an ecosystem, really. It needs that balance.
Yeah.
And it's only when you have that foundation, that genuine mutual respect and understanding, and it's consistent. That's when you get a healthy, productive workplace. When people feel valued, feel heard, they naturally commit more, right? They invest more in their work in the company.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And on the flip side, when supervisors are fair, when they lead by example, they build that trust. They earn genuine respect. It's that constant back and forth, that symbiotic thing that makes a work culture strong.
Like a positive ethical feedback loop, almost.
That's a great way to think about it. Yes.
But, okay, what happens when that loop breaks down? When people face situations that really test those ethical foundations? The sources get into these real cases in workplace ethics. And reading them, I was thinking, wow, that's really relatable. Because they aren't just abstract ideas. They're the kind of sticky situations lots of us could find ourselves in, tomorrow.
Indeed. And these cases really show that ethical behavior often isn't just about following rule A or B. It's about judgment. Especially when, personal loyalties clash with professional duties. Take that classic one. Your colleague, maybe a friend even, accidentally shares some confidential company files.
Oh, yeah.
Policy says you report breaches, protect secrets. Simple, right. But then there's the friendship, that emotional weight. It creates this huge internal conflict. It's not just choosing A or B. It's like you're weighing your personal bond against your professional duty. Both feel right in their own way.
That really does capture that tension. Personal loyalty versus professional obligation. And another one from the source I found fascinating was the going home on time scenario, especially in places, where working late is kind of the norm.
Right, the overtime culture. Yeah.
So a new person joins, and they consistently leave when the workday is supposed to end, even if there's still stuff on their desk. Now, some might see that and think, oh, lacks work ethic or dedication maybe. But others would say, no, they're just setting boundaries, protecting their personal time. Which is fair enough, right? It really challenges this idea that there's one single right way to handle work hours. What does that mean for diverse teams especially?
That's a crucial point, isn't it? It highlights those invisible ethical contracts we have at work. What's considered normal or dedicated in one place or by one person might feel like a total imposition to someone else, or like their well-being doesn't matter. For teams spread across different cultures maybe, this needs extra awareness. You need clear communication about expectations, not just assumptions.
Right. Avoid those misunderstandings.
Exactly, because work ethic isn't always this single fixed thing. It varies.
That's a really powerful distinction to make. And speaking of personal integrity, the sales dilemmas were pretty stark.
Yes, those are compelling.
Like the student pressured to sell that diet coffee she thinks might not be safe. Or the phone salesperson who knows there's a major battery flaw in the device they're pushing. In both cases, it's like immediate cash versus your own conscience.
Right.
Do you tell the truth Or do you make the sale? It shows ethics goes way beyond just company rules sometimes. It becomes this really personal test.
Absolutely. These scenarios just hammer home that ethical decisions are rarely black and white. They're usually gray, really gray, and you have to carefully navigate your own convictions against all these external pressures, which leads us nicely into distinguishing between individual ethics at work and the broader corporate ethics, and also this really potent idea the sources introduce, moral kidnapping.
Moral kidnapping. Wow, okay. That sounds pretty intense. I think a lot of people might just lump workplace ethics and business ethics together, but there's a key difference, isn't there?
There is, yeah, a vital one. Workplace ethics is mostly about how you, the individual employee, behave day to day, your personal choices, your professional conduct. Business ethics, though, that's about how the organization itself operates, its big principles, things like fair trade, consumer rights, environmental impact, data privacy, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So you could think of business ethics as the big moral framework for the company,
Right.
and workplace ethics as the behavioral guidelines for everyone working inside that framework.
That clarifies it nicely. So where does this moral kidnapping fit in? It sounds like it's about messing with those behavioral guidelines.
Exactly that. It's a manipulation. Moral kidnapping happens when demands that aren't actually your obligations, or maybe they're just totally unreasonable, get forced on you, but they're disguised as being about morality.
Ah,
It cleverly uses your own sense of conscience, maybe your feeling of responsibility, or even just fear of getting blamed, to get you to do what the person making the demand wants. And it often comes with a lot of emotional pressure, guilt tripping, which ultimately just wears down your rights and makes the workplace feel pretty toxic.
so it's not really about genuine ethics at all. It's using the feeling of ethics as a weapon almost.
Yeah.
Can you give us some more examples, maybe ones that are a bit more subtle than just demanding unpaid overtime?
Oh, absolutely. It can be quite insidious. Beyond the obvious unpaid overtime for the good of the team, think about maybe that subtle pressure to donate your own money to the company's chosen charity, framed as being a good corporate citizen,
Right, I could see that.
or feeling like you have to give up your weekend for a supposedly voluntary team building thing because not going marks you as not a team player.
Yeah.
Another big area is performance pressure. Using excuses like the company's survival depends on this to push employees to hit sales targets in ways that make them uncomfortable. Maybe promoting a product they know is flawed or using really aggressive, maybe even misleading sales tactics. Real performance should come from honesty, from sustainability, not from coercion dressed up as dedication.
That's such an important line to draw. Genuine ethical behavior versus demands just disguised as ethical. It really makes you pause and think about pressures we might face or maybe even put on others without realizing it. So knowing this happens, how do you actually spot the difference? Especially when you're under pressure yourself, how do you push back?
It is crucial to be able to tell the difference, and the sources actually offer some pretty practical advice here. First, they say, cultivate a professional attitude, but always protect your own rights. Be firm but polite. So if you're facing unreasonable, unpaid overtime, maybe politely explain you have existing family commitments, but offer an alternative, like I can finish the urgent parts from home during my normal hours tomorrow, something like that.
Okay, so propose solutions.
Right. Second, always try to use the proper channels first. If work feels unfairly dumped on you, have a quiet, direct chat with your supervisor before, escalating it further.
Makes sense. Direct communication first.
Third, know your rights. Understand what's actually required by your contract or by law, and assert those rights respectfully. While still following reasonable company rules, of course, like if asked to sell that flawed product, maybe tell your boss about your ethical concerns, suggest ways to fix the product or alternative strategies rather than just saying yes or flat out no.
So engage constructively.
Exactly. And finally, this one's quite deep. Try to find work you're genuinely passionate about. Because if employees don't really care about the work itself, if they're just phoning it in, pretty much any extra demand from the company can start to feel like moral kidnapping.
Ah, that's interesting. Because your heart's not in it, so every ask feels like an unfair burden, not a contribution you want to make.
Percent.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So with all these complexities, how do we actually build strong work ethics? Especially thinking about people just starting their careers.
Well, the sources suggest it's kind of a multi-pronged approach, not just one thing. It starts early, with school learning, getting that foundational ethical understanding from courses, analyzing cases, that sort of thing.
Right.
Then there's work training from the company itself, teaching new hires about specific company policies, what's expected behaviorally. But beyond the formal stuff, self-reflection is key. Constantly, looking at your own actions, your decisions at work, asking yourself, does this line up with my values?
An ongoing process.
Definitely. And maybe the most powerful, being a good example.
Right.
Sounds grand, but it often starts small. Just being consistently punctual, being honest, even in little things, showing genuine respect for everyone, regardless of their position. These small, consistent actions, they build up over time into a really solid ethical character.
That's really practical advice. It's like a mix of learning, thinking, and doing.
Right.
Consistently. And it seems leaders have a huge role here too, right? The sources really stress that leaders need to walk the walk. They need to foster a workplace that's about shared well-being, long-term value, not just hitting the next quarterly target at any cost.
Absolutely crucial. Leaders set the tone. We have to remember, work rules are meant to create a healthy, productive environment. They shouldn't be tools for exploitation. Yes, companies need to succeed financially, obviously, but protecting workers' rights is just as important. Finding that balance, that sustainable middle ground, that's the real challenge. And it's the sign of a truly ethical organization.
And well, that brings us towards the end of this deep dive. We've covered so much ground, some of it quite challenging, from that really nuanced idea of mutual respect to digging into those tricky, real cases, company secrets, overtime pressures that clash between sales targets and conscience, and seeing how workplace ethics really is, as the sources said, not a one-sided requirement, but a goal that both labor and management should work towards together. So what does this all mean for you, listening right now, as you navigate your own path at work?
Well, pulling it all together, I think the core takeaway is that true workplace ethics are really behavioral guidelines. They're built on mutual respect, professionalism, and their whole purpose is to create a work environment that's positive, healthy, and actually efficient because people feel good being there. And it's so, so important to tell that apart from moral kidnapping. We talked about that when demands that aren't really obligations or are just unreasonable get pushed on you disguised as morality. Using your conscience or fear of blame, we saw that clearly with things like the overtime culture pressure or those aggressive performance targets.
Yeah.
There was a really great metaphor in the sources, actually, to think about as we finish up. Work ethics is like a compass on a ship. It shows us the right way at work. If we don't follow good work ethics, we might get lost or crash. But if we follow good work ethics, we can reach our goals safely.
That's a powerful image.
It is. And it leads to, I think, a really important question for all of us, remembering that other quote, when we are honest, we can sleep well at night. When we lie, we feel worried and scared. So the question is, how will you make sure your personal compass, that inner guide, keeps you focused on being a genuinely good person on the inside, not just someone who's, following the external rules?